So I started out making art at a very young age. I started drawing I think as soon as I could hold a pencil. My dad's an artist, and my brother actually is an artist as well. Having a father as an artist, I just around the house just started drawing. I mean, that's what he did, so that's what I did. And I can remember I always tried to be better than him. It was kind of a personal challenge for me. But he was my first teacher, and probably the biggest influence that I've had on my career. The work is assemblage, and so they're sculptures made of many different carvings. Some of the carvings were done by my dad, some done by me, and then I would take the carvings and cut them up and reassemble them into figurative sculpture. So a lot of the components are totem poles, masks, canoes, feast dishes, sort of more traditional objects, and then I've manipulated them, if you will. I try in all the mediums I do to try to do something different with them. So I learn them, I then try to progress them and try to take them to a place where maybe we haven't seen, or I haven't seen definitely, where they're going to end up going. That was sort of the genesis, if you will, of this project. Was in the beginning it was just trying and striving to find a new way to carve. Carving is a subtractive process, meaning that you start with a log of wood and you carve into it, revealing whatever it is that you're carving. So you're removing material. And I got this idea of actually taking carving and turning it into an assemblage more. So I started taking the pieces and constructing a larger figure. The first piece that I did was a piece called Odalesque, and I created that for an exhibition in Vancouver at Macaulay Fine Arts. I was really engaging with the idea of the totem pole as a symbol and really trying to take that symbol back. I felt like the symbol had gotten away from us, and maybe just wanted to play with the image and in doing so, take control of it again. My dad and my brother were a bit kind of blown away that I was cutting up totem poles. When I first started cutting them up and started cutting up masks and stuff, they were a little bit concerned, partly because some of these were their works, and I just said, "Can I have this?" And they were like, "Well, what are you going to use it for?" And I was like, "I'm going to cut it up," and so I would cut up the work. In our culture, totem poles have many different functions. These are made up mostly of totem poles. They have many different functions, but one of the primary functions is to tell our history. Now, we have a culture, the Celtic culture, as well as many of the cultures on the coast of British Columbia, they have oral traditions and visual traditions. So we didn't write down our history in history books. Our history was told through elaborate carvings, as well as painted boxes. And we never had a word for art because art was on everything. Art was everything. We decorated everything, and so I felt like what I was doing in a way was I was cutting up these totem poles. I was cutting up our history, which our history has been cut up. Our history has been, for lack of a better word, it's been attacked, and it's been mutilated, much in the same way that I was doing to these poles. The way the government created laws to ban the potlatch, the way people like my father were taken from their parents and put into a residential school. I felt like our history had been severed in many ways, and we were trying to build it back together. And I felt like this was a concept I was working with here was that the government and the church and the powerful elites, that the colonial powers that took over British Columbia and Canada were trying to take Native people, and they were trying to fit them into a mold. They were trying to, basically, they thought that, you know, we were primitive savages and that we needed to be educated, we needed to find God and Christ, and they tried to make us, for lack of a better term, they tried to make us like them. They tried to make us white. And so one of the conceptual underpinnings in this show is me cutting up these various pieces of our culture that have meaning, that have a history, and reassembling those pieces into the form of something that a white person would recognize. In other words, they look like European statuary. So it was something that taking our culture and making it European, or taking our art and making it look European, something that they could understand and feel comfortable with. Cultural conflation to me means two cultures or more, but in this case two cultures being pushed together, and sort of something new comes out of that. That's something that I've done in practically all of my work, I would think. You know, I often refer to it as a remix. I'm, you know, taking traditional Western art history, and I'm taking traditional Native art history, and I'm pushing those two things together to create a new dialogue, which is, you know, it resonates with me because that's who I am. You know, on my mother's side, I'm of Scottish descent from Saskatchewan, and then on my father's side, I'm Celtic descent from Waglisla, BC. And so growing up, it was confusing. You know, it was I didn't feel like I belonged to either kind of group, and also so I didn't feel like a white person. I didn't feel like a Native person. You know, and so I felt like a bit of an outsider. And I thought, when I was younger, I used to think that was detrimental. You know, it was, and then when I got older, I started to see it, you know, more as an advantage, really. You know, I got to see that, you know, I maybe wasn't part of the group thinking. You know, I had my own thoughts, and I could think outside of the group maybe, and bring new ideas to some of these preconceived notions, you know, that we had about each group, and started to see myself more as a bridge between two cultures. So instead of not being a part of each culture and feeling that disconnect, I started to feel like I was somebody that was connecting these two cultures, and through the work, I could speak to these two cultures and sometimes about these two cultures.